At my own son's wedding reception, my daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're not sitting at the head table. That's for family." I had just written a check for $42,000 to pay for that wedding. I want to tell you about the day I finally stopped being a piggy bank with a pulse. My name is Nora. Wait, let me start over. My name doesn't matter as much as what happened. I'm 64 years old. I live in Savannah, Georgia, in the same house where I raised my son. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a fig tree in the backyard that my late husband Harold planted the year our son was born. I kept that house through widowhood, through leaky pipes and a roof that needed replacing twice, through all the years when it would have been easier to sell and move somewhere smaller. I kept it because it was home, because family meant something to me. My son. I'll call him my son because that's who he is to me, more than any name could capture. He's 31. Smart boy. Studied business, got a good job in Charlotte. I was so proud when he called to tell me he'd met someone. I asked him what she was like and he said, "Mom, she's ambitious." I should have asked a follow-up question. I didn't. Her name is Kelsey. She came from money, or at least, her family acted like they did. Her mother wore designer clothes to the engagement dinner and spent most of the meal talking about their vacation home in Hilton Head. Her father shook my hand once, firmly, like he was assessing whether I was worth his time, and then spent the rest of the evening talking to the other men. I told myself, give it time. People are nervous at first meetings. Families take time to blend. My son proposed on a Tuesday in October. By Wednesday, Kelsey had a Pinterest board with 600 pins and a budget spreadsheet that she emailed to me, not to my son, to me, with a note that said, "So excited to make this happen together." The initial estimate was $60,000. I'm a retired school librarian. Harold left me a modest life insurance policy and the house is paid off. But I'm not wealthy. I have savings. I have Social Security. I'm careful. I told my son the honest truth. I could contribute around $25,000. That was already stretching myself thin, but he's my only child and I wanted his wedding to be beautiful. Kelsey reworked the spreadsheet. The new version had a highlighted cell at the bottom that said, "Mom's contribution, $42,000. There was a smiley face emoji next to it. I called my son. I said, "Honey, I told you I could do 25. I can't do 42. He got quiet in that way he has. Then he said, "Kelsey already put deposits down on some things." I should have stopped there. I know that now. But he was my son, and it was his wedding. And I had spent 31 years saying yes to him when I could, and trying to explain gently when I couldn't, and somehow this time the explanation got lost. I transferred the money in 3 installments over 4 months. My savings account looked like it had gone on a diet. Tell me honestly, have you ever given so much to someone that you convinced yourself it meant they understood what you'd sacrificed? That the size of the gift communicated the size of the love, and the love would be returned in kind? I told myself that. I believed it. The wedding was in April. Cherry blossoms, a historic venue outside Charlotte, a band that played until 11. It was genuinely beautiful. Kelsey wore a dress that cost more than my first car. My son looked like the happiest man alive. I sat in the front row of the ceremony and I cried, and they were real tears, pure ones, because whatever had been stressful about the planning disappeared when I saw his face. Then we moved to the reception. I had been told the seating arrangement was finalized 2 weeks before. I didn't ask to see it. Parents of the groom sit at the head table. That seemed obvious. Standard. I had seen it at every wedding I'd attended for 40 years. I found my name card at a round table near the back corner. Table 11. I stood there and read my own name on that little folded card 3 times, like reading it again would change what it said. The head table had 8 seats. My son and Kelsey, her parents, her sister and brother-in-law, and 2 of Kelsey's college friends who had been bridesmaids. No seat for me. No seat for Harold's sister, my son's only living aunt, who had driven 9 hours from Tennessee, and was standing next to me with her reading glasses pushed up on her head, also staring at the seating chart. I found Kelsey near the bar. She was glowing the way brides do. She had a glass of champagne, and her veil was still perfectly pinned. I said quietly, because I didn't want to make a scene at my son's wedding, "Kelsey, honey, I think there might be a mix-up with the seating. I'm at table 11. She looked at me, not unkindly exactly, more like she was mildly surprised I was bringing this up. She said, "Yes, the head table is for immediate family." I said, I'm his mother, she said. I mean, my family is very close and we wanted it to be intimate up there. And then she smiled and turned to greet someone else. I stood in the middle of that beautiful reception venue with cherry blossoms on every table and four-course dinner plates that I had paid for, and I felt something happen in my chest that I can only describe as a door closing. Not slamming, just quietly, firmly, clicking shut. My son found me about 10 minutes later. He could tell something was wrong. He has always been able to read my face, he said. Mom, I know the seating is a little, I said. She told me the head table is for immediate family. He looked away. That was the answer. I said, I wrote $42,000 in checks for this wedding. I am your mother. And I am sitting at table 11 next to people whose names I don't know. He said, Mom, can we please not do this today? And there it was. Not I'm sorry, not let me fix this. Just a request for me to tuck my feelings away into a napkin and put them in my purse and smile for the photographer. I have spent a long time being the person who doesn't do this today, who waits for a better time that never quite comes, who absorbs things quietly because keeping the peace feels like keeping the family together. I had been doing it my whole life, at PTA meetings, at faculty meetings, in my own marriage sometimes. God rest Harold's soul. He was a good man, but he didn't always hear me the first time either. I was good at going quiet. I had 40 years of practice, but something had shifted. That door that clicked shut. It wasn't closing me off from my son. It was closing off a version of myself, the one who said, it's fine, I'll sit anywhere. The one who transferred $42,000 without a signed agreement. The one who read the spreadsheet with the smiley face emoji and didn't say, absolutely not. I picked up my small beaded evening bag. I found Harold's sister and told her I wasn't feeling well. She looked at me with the eyes of a woman who understood exactly what had happened, because women of a certain age always do. We have a radar for it that gets sharper every decade. She squeezed my hand and didn't say anything, which was the kindest possible response. I went to my son and I said, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful night. I'm going home. He stared at me. You're leaving? Mom, the dinner hasn't even started. I know. What am I supposed to tell people? I said. Tell them your mother wasn't feeling well. I kissed him on the cheek. He smelled like the same shampoo he'd used since he was a teenager, and for 1 second I wanted to take it all back. Sit at table 11, eat the salmon, dance to the band, be the agreeable woman one more time. I didn't. I drove myself home to Savannah. 4 hours on I-95. April air coming through the cracked window. The radio playing old country songs I knew all the words to. I pulled into my driveway a little after 9 o'clock. The fig tree was just starting to bud. I sat in the car for a while before I went inside. I want to be honest with you because I think you deserve honesty more than you deserve a tidy story. I cried on that drive. A lot. Not pretty crying either. The kind where you have to pull over once because you can't see the road. I wasn't crying because I was angry, although I was angry. I was crying because I had loved so generously and been treated so carelessly. And those two things existing simultaneously is one of the lonelier feelings in the world. But here is what I also knew, sitting in that driveway. I had not done this for applause. I had not left that reception to punish my son or make a point or win some argument. I had left because staying would have required me to keep pretending that what happened was acceptable, and I was 64 years old and I was tired of pretending. The next morning, I made coffee and I sat on my porch and I thought about what came next. My son called at 8:15. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 9. I answered. He was upset, not apologetic at first, upset. He said I had ruined part of his wedding night because Kelsey was hurt that I'd left. I let him finish. Then I said, I need you to understand something. I gave $42,000 toward a wedding where I was seated at table 11 and told I wasn't immediate family. I left because I have some self-respect left and I intend to keep it. Silence, I said. I love you. I will always love you. But I will not pretend that what happened was fine because it wasn't fine. More silence. Then, quietly, I didn't know she was going to do that with the seating. That landed differently than I expected. I believed him, actually. Not entirely, but enough. My son has many qualities. Cruelty for sport isn't one of them. He had married a woman who organized the world according to a hierarchy I didn't fit neatly into, and he had let her, and that was its own problem. But it was a different problem than if he had arranged it himself. I said, Then you need to have a conversation with your wife about what your mother means to you. Because right now, I feel like I mean table 11. He didn't have an answer for that. We talked for almost an hour. It wasn't a resolution. Real resolutions don't come in one phone call. And anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't had a real family. But something opened up that had been closed for a while. He told me things I hadn't known. That Kelsey had been insecure about how close he and I were. That she had seen my financial contributions as a way of maintaining control. That there had been arguments between them that he had never told me about. I listened. I tried not to defend myself and not to prosecute her. I just listened. What I said at the end was this: I'm not going anywhere. I'm your mother and I will be your mother until the last day I'm on this earth. But things have to change. I won't be treated like an ATM and a nuisance at the same time. You have to decide what kind of relationship you want with me, and that decision involves your wife. It has been 8 months since the wedding. My son and I talk every Sunday. Kelsey and I are not close. I won't pretend we are. But there was one afternoon in July when she called me, unexpectedly, and said, I think I owe you an apology for the seating. It wasn't a long call. It wasn't effusive. But she said the words, and she meant them, and I accepted it. Because I'm not in the business of holding grudges. I'm in the business of setting terms I can actually live with. I did not give any more large sums of money. My son asked once, indirectly, about whether I might help with a down payment on a house. And I said, when you're ready to have that conversation with proper documentation and a real agreement, I'm open to discussing it. He laughed a little, nervously. I didn't laugh. I meant it. I planted sweet peas along the back fence this spring. Harold always wanted to, and we never got around to it. They came up exactly the way the package said they would. Climbing, purple and pink, fragrant in the early morning when I take my coffee outside. I keep thinking about that drive home in April, the radio and the dark highway and the crying I'm not particularly proud of. I keep thinking about how I almost didn't leave. How close I came to sitting down at table 11, unfolding my napkin, and becoming someone who accepted that as her place. I'm glad I drove home. I would do it again. If you are somewhere in the middle of a situation like this, if you are the person who has given and been handed a table number in return, I want you to hear this. Leaving is not the same as losing. Walking away from something that diminishes you is not failure. It is possibly the most important thing you will do. I raised my son to be a good man. I think he still is one. I think he's learning what that means inside his own marriage, and that's work only he can do. My work is different. My work is tending the fig tree and the sweet peas and the life I have left, and doing it with my whole chest, and not apologizing for taking up my rightful space in it. That's the thing about being 64. You finally understand that no one is going to give you your dignity. You have to take it, and once you do, you find out it was always yours to begin with.